All right. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Never Stop Healing podcast. This is your host today, Cade Archibald, and really excited to jump in. We got some really cool stuff we're going to be sharing today. Some great content that we'll be going over. And before we get started there, just wanted to talk a little bit about what we went over last night in our hack, see how things are going. Our challenge last week was getting in your cruciferous vegetables. So hope you guys have been doing that. Got some really cool recipes and things that you've tried. Had some really cool cauliflower stuff that we had done. I think we had a couple other things in the chat box yesterday of what others had done with Brussels sprouts, kale, broccoli, some really cool stuff. But today we're going to be diving into some info on gluten and stem cells and stem cell health. Regan's got some stuff we're going to be diving into there. So I'm going to get this launched here in just a second. Really excited about this, but I got the chat box open. If you have any questions at all, type them into the chat box. We're here to help you guys out, but we're going to get this set up and going.
Welcome everybody. We are going to be talking about some very cool things. We're going to be talking about gluten and casein and nutrition, and we're going to really dive into some of the deeper aspects of nutrition for your stem cell health, because one of my missions is I want to help you get healthy head to toe. So let me get this thing started real quick on my video so you guys can see me here. Hey, let's make sure that we got this rolling. All right, there we go. So very first thing that you want to look at when you're thinking about overall health, maybe some of you you've got some achy joints. Maybe you've had your knees are osteoarthritic. Maybe you've got some regeneration that you're looking for in certain parts of your body. Well, there's certain things you can do to actually enhance healing, because remember, what a stem cell is at its core is just an undifferentiated cell that needs to become something useful. And so a stem cell is it's like having a computer programmer that can work with any type of programming, whatever you throw at it. This computer programmer can create whatever you want to digitally. And that's what a stem cell can do, is it can really enhance your body's overall health. I've been doing a lot of research on aging, and so we're going to have some more things coming up on aging. But the World Health Organization is coming out with a new book called the ICD-11, which actually now we're defining some of the diseases that are specifically related to aging, which I think is phenomenal. But it's our stem cell population decline that causes us to age and causes us to have these degenerative diseases. So today, what we're going to talk about is how you can actually enhance some of the properties of your stem cells in your gut, and some of the foods that you can start putting in your mouth. We're going to talk about the macronutrient ratios, because I get asked this all the time: how many grams of fat, how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbohydrates do I need? So if you stick around, you guys are going to learn a whole bunch of new things about how you can actually enhance the growth of the stem cells in your body, but also how you can enhance your nutritional needs and just feel amazing. So I just want to start by telling a story to you guys. When I grew up on a farm in Idaho, and an amazing place, and I was exposed to a lot of chemicals. But one of the things that, you guys know about my story, I had psoriasis, I had Hashimoto's, my body was a wreck. And so yesterday I was able to meet with this gentleman, and he's 58 years old. He just retired, and he's just the most incredible human being that you could ever imagine. Worked to, very high power, worked on Wall Street, worked in LA. And so he was traveling back and forth for a lot of his career. And he's 58 now, and he's like, look, now I have the time to focus on my health. And we were sitting down, we're having a great conversation, but he said, look, I got weight that I need to lose. I've got this knee pains. We're doing stem cells in his knee. We're going to work on his back. But the biggest thing that struck me was the fact that he said, look, I've got everything taken care of. I got no financial concerns. I'm retired. I live in the place of my dreams. We've always wanted to live here. My kids are doing amazing. Everything in life is great, but I still have this anxiety that's still there. It's always there. And I feel kind of this kind of restless energy. And I realized that so many of us, we move through life without really taking inventory about all those great things that are going on around us, all those things to be grateful for, the things to really look at. And I think health is one of those areas that we can dismiss, and we can just keep driving, and we think that we're going to get healthier on our own. But in all reality, the best time to take care of your health is today. And so I look at my health, and the reason I brought up my story, because one of the things that I was able to learn is out of necessity is I would not have been able to keep going in my 20s. I would be probably on disability right now, non-productive, if I didn't get my health back. And so I just want to challenge each one of you right now to look at your health and set some bigger goals, set some higher goals for yourself so that you can actually live life to your fullest. Because even if everything else is taken care of, like with this patient, you can still not be fulfilled. You can still have a life without meaning, without purpose, because you failed to take care of your health. He was struggling to do the things he wanted to do. And he always had this nagging fear in the back of his mind that he was going to have a heart attack, have a stroke, or that he wasn't productive enough. So I just want to give you guys just a quick pause here and just make some goals, take some notes on what you want your life to look like, and then just live it fully right now in the present moment. So that's my challenge to you. But as I was overcoming my own health journey and my own health issues, I learned that there's a food called gluten that really would irritate my skin. And I know there's a lot of stuff out there on, gluten-free this, gluten-free that. So be careful, because I'm going to talk to you guys about, avoiding gluten, but I don't mean like go and get all the gluten-free stuff. And just because it says gluten-free on that label doesn't mean it's healthy. A lot of the fillers that get put into those gluten-free products might be just as damaging as the gluten itself. All right, so let's jump into it. So first of all, if you look at your small intestine, we could cut open your small intestine. I don't mean to sound morbid here, but we could lay it out over an entire tennis court. Now that's pretty phenomenal, because there's so much surface area in your small intestine that it's designed to bring nutrients into your body. And the beautiful thing about this is if your small intestine, if these villi, there's these little folds in your small intestine that kind of look like this. And these villi, what you have is on the lower part of the villi, these are called the crypts. And in this crypt, this is where you have a massive supply of stem cells. And these stem cells are called CD34. So stem cells have different markers on them, different genetic markers, because certain stem cells are more likely to differentiate into a specific lineage based on kind of their genetic profile. What we found with that too is stem cells can trans-differentiate. So they can already start basically evolving into like a bone cell or a cardiac cell for your heart. But then your body calls on it to become something else, and it can trans-differentiate. It can become an adipose cell or whatever your body needs. But in the small intestine, this is where your immune system gets regulated. So it's pretty interesting that we have these immune cells that exist right there in the crypts of our small intestine. And so if you can keep this area of your small intestine super healthy, your body, not only will the stem cells, if you've had stem cells injected into your body or infused, not only will these CD34 stem cells get the signal more clearly, because remember, these MSCs are medicinal signaling cells. So you're going to draw on more healing potential over the course of your life. But the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a lot more nutrients derived from your food. So if you're struggling with poor energy, or you get achy, itchy skin, if you notice that your hair is starting to, maybe you get dandruff, you get, the dryness, your hair is falling out, your eyebrows are thinning. One of the things I'd encourage you to do is look at the amount of gluten that you're eating. And then you can do a very simple test where you look at your pulse. So check your heart rate. And then if you just want to see if your body's intolerant to anything, you eat the food just alone. Don't eat like a whole meal and then check your heart rate and say, oh yeah, then you're not going to know what you reacted to. But if your heart rate goes up after you eat a certain food that your body's immune system is rejecting, that's causing inflammation, your heart rate's going to go up about 10 to 15 beats per minute. If you really have a reaction to it, it's going to go sky high, and then you go anaphylaxis. And that's a whole different immune system. But your IgG response is going to elevate your immune system. So eat some gluten. Not that I'm encouraging it, but eat a little gluten and then check your heart rate and see if it gets elevated. Because I don't think gluten is the cause of all problems. But what we found is that this gluten can destroy and damage those stem cells that exist in the villi of your small intestine. So yes, I would be a big proponent. If you're looking to transform your health, just get rid of gluten. We can live without it. But what gluten is it's this complex protein source. These are called gliadins and glutatins, and these are responsible for giving wheat its kind of texture, its fluffiness. And that's why it feels so good to bite into a piece of bread. And so I'll tell you, if you look at these, where do we find gluten? Well, it can be found in, of course, your breads, your biscuits, your waffles, crackers. It's going to be found in a lot of, like, if you look at rolled oats, usually rolled oats are rolled in gluten. So gluten-free oats are like your steel cut oats. They're not going to have gluten in them. Rye can have, that's a gluten source. And if you look at this, you're also going to find that there's a lot of gluten in like soaps and shampoos, surprisingly, because it gives it that texture that we all love. We love that fluffiness. But what we're finding, and what some of the research has shown, that this gluten, what these gluten peptides do, is they diminish this epithelial lining in your small intestine. Remember that tennis court, it's like poking a bunch of holes in the tennis court, and then all the nutrients, you have undigested food proteins that can leak through, specifically these gliadins, and that triggers a whole immune reaction. So then your body goes into this inflammation response. And so if you guys want to get more inflammation in your body, eat a bunch of gluten. And this is true for about 80% of the population. Some of us don't have any reaction to it, and this is different than celiac. So don't be confused between the two. Having a gluten intolerance is going to create some systemic inflammation, low grade. Having celiac is going to create this high grade inflammatory reaction, and long term you can end up losing part of your colon if you don't manage this. So what we found in some of the research is, if you look at these CD4 T cells, these T cells are activated by gluten. And what happens is then you get these pro-inflammatory cytokines, and they come in and they dominate this what's called the Th1 pattern interferon. And so if you want to know what an interferon is, remember when you've got the flu? I'm sure everyone on this has gotten the flu. My son actually woke up sick this morning, and poor kid, you could see it in his eyes. He's pale. He's like, I want to go to school, Dad. And I'm like, no, you can't go to school looking like that. Just relax at home. And but those interferons, he said, yeah, I'm achy all over. I feel it in my neck and my back. So interferons are little proteins that are trying to suss out where the damage is. And they bring with them a lot of an inflammatory kind of achy response. And so what these cytokines do when the activated, when these CD4 T cells get activated, is they cause this matrix degradation in your body. And so they increase cytotoxicity and then decrease stem cell proliferation. So just to add some layers of science under what gluten can actually do to your body, is it actually creates degradation, and the degradation starts in the small intestine, and then that degradation can go throughout your entire body. We've had some patients, we just get them on a gluten-free diet and their immune markers just completely flatline. That patient who I referenced earlier, we looked at his inflammatory markers and they're all sky high. So this could be one of the areas to start in your life, because gluten, not only is it, cytotoxic, it diminishes your stem cell supply, but it also works on the morphine receptors in your brain. So when I was a kid, one of the things we do at night, my dad and I, it was great because I have the best dad in the world, but we worked on the farm, and then at night we'd come home and we'd eat dinner with the family, but he and I would kind of sneak out like around 9 o'clock and have a bowl of cereal together. And so that was the cereal. It had gluten and then it had dairy, casein, which is another kind of cytotoxic molecule for your stem cells. But it was a fun little process. But when I learned that gluten and casein stimulate the morphine receptors in your brain, I realized just how addictive that was, because it took me until I was in my early 20s when I found out, hey, before gluten, we really knew a bunch about it. This was 20 years ago. And I said, wait, gluten is doing this? There's no way. But then once I stopped eating those bowls of cereal at night, I like, that was a small change, but it made me feel so much better. And so, I'd encourage you to look at take inventory of where you may be consuming gluten in your life. But what happens is in your small intestine, and why it's so important that you look at the health of this organ is because without the small intestine, we get no nutrient absorption. And without nutrient absorption, what happens to us? That's right, we die. We stop thriving. We get in this malnourished state. And you've seen people who are malnourished who are incredibly overweight. They got no energy, their body's inflamed. There's no nutrients getting delivered to the cells. Otherwise, the metabolism would kick in and they burn a lot of that fat off. So it's really important to look at this, because every 3 to 5 days, your body, those stem cells that are in those crypts of the small intestine, are creating a brand new epithelial layer. So this is a 1 cell layer thick membrane is your small intestine. And every 3 to 5 days, those cells are dying off and they're being replaced by brand new cells. But as you have inflammation in here, these cells don't turn over quite as quickly. And so you end up with this machinery in your small intestine that doesn't work as well as you could. So if you look at it though, your entire intestinal lining, you're not going to have a single cell left that's original after about 21 days. The whole thing gets replaced. So it's pretty phenomenal. All right, so gluten. So just make yourself a little challenge. Now, Regan, I'm getting asked this right now. Regan, what can I eat that, I love bread, and you just said, don't go for the gluten-free stuff because there's preservatives and sometimes it can be more damaging than not. So what do I do? And so this is where I would say the best thing you can do is eat some sourdough bread. Now, maybe once a week, but once again, test yourself. And I actually test just fine with sourdough bread. So eat the sourdough bread, wait about 20 to 30 minutes, get your heart rate first, write that down, wait about 20 to 30 minutes, and then see how many beats per minute your heart is. And if it goes up, then you probably have a reaction to it. Obviously, make sure you're not having a stressful conversation or watching like the news or Fox Network or whatever, the crisis network. But then you'll be able to actually get a handle on if you can handle sourdough bread, because what happens in the process of fermentation is a lot of the bacteria eats the proteins, eats the gluten proteins, those gliadins, and breaks them down so they're not so reactive in your body. And especially if you're doing your own starts, you're using everything needs to be the organic flour. This is a much safer way to get a little of that tasty bread in your life. Because trust me, I'm like you. I love that texture. I love the feeling. It's just the smells. It's all amazing. So gluten, but avoid that, especially if you've just recently got stem cells. We want you to stay away from that at least the first 30 days, because these stem cells are fragile. We need all the signaling properties going out to your small intestine that we can get, especially if you've been treated for some type of autoimmunity. We've done the IV, or you've had your brain treated. The gluten tends to affect you systemically, in those internal organs more than anywhere. All right, so gluten. So next thing we're going to talk about are mycotoxins. And mycotoxins, they've been studies where there's certain mycotoxins come from fungus or mold. So just so you guys are aware of that, if you have a moldy house, you guys know how sick you can get so fast. If you've had that leaky faucet, you had no idea that it was there. And you're just like, why am I waking up with a headache, with brain fog? I just don't feel rested. Well, it could be from a moldy environment that you live in. So, really start looking at that, because one of the things some Swiss researchers did is they took these mice, and these were 8 to 10-week-old mice, and they exposed them to ochratoxin A. And ochratoxin A, you're going to find that in, we'll go through this in a minute, but you're going to find this in your wines, in your coffee. You can find it in beer. You can find it in fruit beverages, in certain cheese and milk products. And a lot of times it's going to be found, this ochratoxin A, in things that we put in a bag, things that are packaged. But anyway, these ochratoxin A administration was, they took same mice from the same lineage, so they could have a control group and then the group that was exposed to this ochratoxin A. And what they found is that these young mice who were exposed to this ochratoxin A showed a significant decrease in the number of hematopoietic stem cells and a significant decrease in immunity and development. Now, this is very important because these hematopoietic or hematopoietic, depending on how you want to pronounce it, these stem cells are the stem cells that modulate the immune system. And so they help you create a very robust immunity. And so you can ward off disease, you can ward off sickness. And just by being exposed to this, it completely collapsed these mice's immune system just by being exposed to these mycotoxins. And so what we've seen is that the high levels of mycotoxins, sometimes moderate levels, depending on your genetics, have been shown to decrease stem cell differentiation. So the stem cell's ability to create different structures in your body, and proliferation. So let's talk about what all these are, and maybe you guys are eating some of these. I would say that, we talked about some of these. Dried fruit can have it, some pork products can, certain poultry products can, certain spices. So be careful with your spices when you're pouring your spices over that steaming pot, and that steam comes up. That can create an environment where the fungus can thrive. So think about the environments where the fungus love to live. They love the hydrophilic environments where there's moisture. They enjoy darkness. And so, like, if you see those big grain bins, this is one of the reasons why we've started spraying crops with Roundup. We cut down the wheat, and our wheat in the United States, by the way, is not genetically modified. Even though we spray Roundup on it, which is typically used for genetically modified foods, the Roundup sprayed on it so we don't get pests growing on that once it's cut and before it gets harvested and taken into the grain bins. So anyway, that Roundup, you're getting glyphosate, is one of the most damaging things. But the other thing you want to look at is your nuts. So like peanuts. This is a legume, but peanuts can be very mold inducing. So make sure that you're actually, we recommend avoiding peanuts altogether. And we're going to get into the 5 major foods that you want to avoid, but avoiding peanuts altogether can be one of the best things that you can do, because peanuts have this aflatoxin in it. And not only does that damage your body stem cells, but this aflatoxin, it does create an environment where mold and yeast can thrive. All right, so hopefully, ochratoxin A, watch out for the gluten. Casein is a protein that we're going to talk about in a minute. That comes from dairy. But let's just talk about some of the 5 major inflammatory causing foods. And then we're going to jump into some of the macronutrients and how you can start structuring it. So I'm going to give you, now I've just been blabbing on what not to do, but now I'm going to share with you some things you can do. And then we'll jump even deeper into how to put your nutritional program together. So 5 foods that you want to avoid. First of all, you want to avoid any refined and added sugars. So a lot of people got on the big agave bandwagon, and then the deeper we looked into it, we realized, oh man, this is just, it's sugar, and it's from a cactus, but it's still heavily processed and refined. And then you look at the bleached refined flour. So if you're using this bleached flour, then it's getting bleached typically by this chlorine. And that chlorine is going to be very damaging for your thyroid. Now look at industrial plant oils. Get rid of any industrial plant oils. You started cooking with vegetable oil, canola oil. These become very inflammatory causing in our body. Actually, there was a study done where they took the coats of these chefs who were exposed to all this plant-based oils, and their coats were collecting it, and then the dry cleaners, when they had the coats in the back of the van, they started to combust, and it started a big fire in his van. And he had to pull over, and his van was all in flames because of this industrial plant oils that they were cooking with. And it's doing the same thing in your body. Look for any artificial ingredients. If you can't pronounce it, you probably want to avoid it. And then the big five that you want to avoid is gluten and dairy. So the part of dairy that's safe is whey. Whey protein is actually very good. It can be beneficial, but look out for the casein. And goats, that's going to be a healthier source of dairy for you. If you love like goat yogurt, excellent, go for it. Goat cheese, much safer. Soy, you want to watch out for soy, especially in America, because the soy becomes, it's got a lot of phytoestrogens in it, and so it can disrupt your hormone cycle. And then 92%, 93%, depending on what numbers you're looking at, of soy is sprayed with Roundup, and so not always safe. Watch out for corn for the same reasons. If you're going to eat corn, make sure it's GMO free and the corn is organic. But many people react to corn the same way they react to gluten. So one of the tests that we do is a simple hair test. And from that hair analysis, we can see what types of foods your body's reacting to. And then the final thing, which we talked about, were peanuts. So if you can avoid those, you're going to do so much better. So now let's talk about, as promised, the macronutrient ratios. And then we'll dive in deeper to this. So very first thing you want to look at is, this is based on approximately a 2,000 calorie diet. And depending on your size, your weight, your height, obviously these things vary, and your activity level. But I'm just going to give you a general sense of the macronutrients that are necessary for you to really thrive. So very first thing is, everything you look at, its quality is the most important of all these macronutrients. So first thing, if you're looking at getting healthy fats in, you want to get about 130 to 150 grams of healthy fats per day. And that can be avocados, that can be butter, that can be olive oil, that can be olives, it can be cashews, mac nuts. All these are very healthy sources of fats. Now we want you to eat, depending on what your goals are, but no fewer than 20 grams of carbohydrates, and ideally closer to 100, maybe even 120 grams of carbohydrates if you have thyroid issues. Women, you need more carbohydrates than men do. In general, that helps your thyroid convert T4 into T3, which is your active hormone. And then you want to focus on getting about 100 to 150 grams of healthy protein. So no need to count it out, but just be aware, just kind of start looking at this. And we'll explore a little deeper into what you can do, but kind of I'll give you just a quick rough draft of some foods you can eat where you're getting all these macronutrients. Well, very first thing you want to start with is you're planning out your nutritional day is, how are you going to consume about 1 to 2 pounds of vegetables? That's the most important thing you can do, because that's what's going to clean out your liver and get your digestive system all the rough fiber that it needs to grow good, healthy bacteria. So think about how you're going to do that. If you're going to eat the cruciferous vegetables, which I love, like your kale, your Brussels sprouts, your collard greens, mustard greens, cook those, or eat it with radishes. If you want to eat a raw kale salad, the radishes can help neutralize some of the goitrogenic properties that can affect your thyroid in the cruciferous family. Lots of leafy greens. I love arugula, so get plenty of arugula in there. And try and get some purple cabbage, or just get different colors. Your peppers, for those of you who don't have issues with nightshades, peppers are your highest source of vitamin C, so it can be really good for you as well. So think about that first. Now, when we're talking about fats, like half a cup of cashews is going to have about 25 grams of fat. So, excuse me, a quarter of a cup. So maybe a quarter cup of cashews a day. You don't want to overload on the nuts. An avocado is going to have about 21 grams of fat. A tablespoon of butter is going to have about 14 grams of fat. A tablespoon of coconut oil is going to have about 15 grams of fat. A tablespoon of olive oil is going to have about 15 grams of fat. And so if you just use those as your primary fat source, you're going to do great. Think about fish, just like a slab of fish, a slab of salmon the size of your hand is going to have about 20 grams of fat, and then it's going to have about 26 grams of protein. And so fish can be a very good source. If you're looking at bison, same thing. A bison about the size of my hand is going to have about 30 grams of protein and about 10 grams of fat. And so, once again, that's a good, healthy source of meat. Your carbohydrates, eating rice is one of the best sources. Sweet potatoes, squash. I love the spaghetti squash. That can be your serving of carbohydrates. Remember, eating it at night is going to be your best bet. So get on this, just start this, and we'll dive in and go deeper into these macronutrients. Really appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We will be back same time, same place next week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Some really good content there from Regan. Thank you so much, Regan, for putting that together. And we will see you all next week. Have a great day, everybody.